Nalia woke up crying. She did not know she was crying at first. She only knew her chest felt tight, like someone had tied a rope around it in the night. Her eyes were wet. Her throat hurt. Even the air inside her small hut felt heavy, as if it was holding its own sadness. She sat up on her sleeping mat and pressed her palm to her face. Her hand came back damp with tears. "Why am I crying?" she whispered to herself. Outside, the savannah village of Kembe was still quiet. The sky was pale, and the first light was only beginning to touch the dry grass. A rooster called once, then stopped. Far away, a cow mooed softly. Nalia's long hair lay around her like a dark blanket. It was thick, heavy, and smooth. It reached far past her waist, and even when she slept, it seemed to have a life of its own. It curled like a resting snake, not in a scary way, but in a careful, watchful way. Nalia wiped her tears again. She tried to breathe slowly, the way her late mother had taught her long ago. In and out. In and out. But her heart still shook. Then she heard it. A sound like dry leaves rubbing together. No wind blew inside the hut. Yet the sound came from her hair. Nalia held still. The hair moved slightly, as if it was turning its ear to listen. Then, in a whisper so soft it felt like it came from inside Nalia's own mind, a message floated to her. "Wake up. Listen. The land is calling." Nalia's eyes widened. She did not scream. She had heard strange whispers before, but only at night, and only when she was almost asleep. This time the voice was clear, like a calm elder speaking at dawn. "The land is calling." Nalia whispered back. Her hair shifted again. A few strands lifted, then fell gently like grass bending after a tiny step. Nalia's tears stopped, but not because she became happy. They stopped because something stronger than sadness rose in her, attention. A deep, waking feeling. It was as if her heart had been sleeping for years, and now it was opening its eyes. She stood up slowly and tied her wrapper around her waist. She reached for a wooden comb and ran it through her hair. It did not tangle. It never did. It behaved as if it understood her fingers. Outside, Kembe village began to breathe awake. Smoke rose from cooking fires. Women swept dusty yards. Men walked toward farms and pens. The village looked normal, but Nalia felt something wrong under the normal. "The land is calling." Nalia stepped out and looked toward the river path. That path was usually busy at dawn. Water was life in Kembe. Everyone needed it for cooking, washing, and farming. But today the path was quiet. A cold fear crawled into Nalia's stomach. She started walking. As she walked, people noticed her, and their faces changed the way they always did when they saw her. Some frowned. Some shook their heads. Some laughed softly into their hands. "There goes the useless one," a man muttered, not even trying to hide his words. Nalia kept her eyes on the ground. A woman near the fire clicked her tongue. "All that hair and no work. Hair does not grow yams." Another person said, "Her hands are too gentle. The savannah is not for gentle hands." Nalia's cheeks warmed with shame. She had heard these words for years. In Kembe, worth was measured by strength and skill. A person who lifted heavy loads, who farmed wide fields, who hunted, who guarded the night, those people were praised. Nalia was quiet. She did not talk much. She did not fight. Her hands were soft because she braided hair and made small things, baskets, mats, charms of grass. She helped in the small ways nobody praised. And the biggest thing people noticed about her was her hair. It was too long, they said. Too heavy. Too slow. A burden. They told her she spent all her time braiding it, as if braiding was a useless game. They did not know her hair sometimes moved by itself. They did not know it whispered warnings. They did not know it carried old magic like a hidden river under dry soil. Nalia reached the river path and quickened her steps. Soon she met a group of women returning with empty calabashes. Their faces looked tired and afraid. "Where is the water?" Nalia asked, her voice small but steady. One woman looked at her with sharp eyes. "Why do you ask? Will your hair dig a new river?" The others laughed, but the laughter sounded weak and forced, like people trying not to cry. Nalia did not answer the rude words. She stepped closer. Please. What happened? The oldest woman in the group, Mama Sefu, sighed. Mama Sefu's hair was grey and short, and her back bent like a tree that had seen many dry seasons. The river has become thin, Mama Sefu said. It is not flowing the way it should. It is as if the ground is drinking it faster than it can run. Nalia felt her stomach drop. The river is sick? Nalia asked. Mama Sefu nodded. And not only the river. The farms are troubled too. Yesterday, some people said their cassava leaves turned yellow overnight. Another woman added, my okra plants were green in the evening. By morning they looked tired like old cloth. Nalia stared toward the river bend. She could not see the water from there, but she could feel it, like a person can feel a friend's sadness without seeing their face. Her hair brushed her shoulder, and the whisper returned. The land is calling. The old promise is waking. Nalia swallowed. She walked to the elders' meeting tree at the center of Kembe. It was a wide baobab tree that gave shade even in harsh sun. Elders sat there on low stools every morning to talk and settle village matters. Today, many people gathered there. The mood was not normal. It felt like a storm waiting far away. Elder Boko, the oldest man in Kembe, lifted his hand for quiet. His voice was calm, but his eyes looked worried. People of Kembe, he said, we have seen signs. The river is shrinking. Crops are spoiling. Even the goats are restless at night. A young farmer shouted, we need stronger guards. We need to watch the village at night. A hunter added, we should go to the forest edge and find what is causing this. Elder Boko nodded slowly. We will do what we can. We will send strong men to watch. We will pray at the shrine. We will ask our ancestors for mercy. Someone in the crowd pointed at Nalia and laughed. What is she doing here? She has come to braid the elders' beards. A few people laughed. Nalia stood still. Her face burned. Part of her wanted to run. Another part of her, new and waking, refused. Elder Boko looked at her. Nalia, he said kindly, why have you come? Nalia opened her mouth, then closed it. She could not explain whispers and magic hair to people who had called her useless for years. They would laugh harder. They might even get angry and say she was trying to bring shame. But her heart pushed her forward. The river is not well, Nalia said softly. The land is unhappy. Some people rolled their eyes. Elder Boko nodded. Yes, child. He stopped himself and corrected his words, remembering she was a grown woman. Yes, Nalia. We know. Nalia's hair tightened slightly, like a gentle hand urging her. Nalia continued, I think we should listen closely. Sometimes the land speaks in small ways before it shouts. A man scoffed. We do not have time for poems. We need action. Another person said, Nalia thinks the land speaks because she talks to her hair. Laughter rose again. Nalia's throat tightened. She felt tears threaten to return. But then she remembered waking up crying. She remembered the whisper. She remembered how her sadness had turned into attention. She bowed her head. Elders, I have said what I can. She turned away from the crowd and walked back toward her hut. Every step felt heavy, but her hair moved smoothly behind her, steady as a loyal friend. That evening, Kembe village tried to act normal. People cooked, ate, and talked. But fear sat near every fire like an unseen visitor. As night came, guards stood at the edge of the village holding torches. They were strong men, used to chasing away hyenas and wild dogs. They laughed loudly to show they were not afraid. Nalia stayed in her hut. She sat on her mat and braided her hair slowly. Her fingers worked without thinking. It was something she did when her mind was full. Then her hair began to hum. Not a song with words, but a low, warm sound like a drum beating far away. Nalia froze. The air inside the hut changed. It felt cooler. Then the whisper came again, stronger than before. The shadows are walking. Nalia's breath caught. Shadows. Outside, she heard voices. Not human voices. A soft, dragging sound, like cloth rubbing the ground. Then she heard the guards shout. Who is there? Another guard yelled, bring more fire. Nalia stood up quickly and stepped outside. The moon was thin, like a small silver smile in the sky. The village torches flickered. At the edge of the village, beyond the last huts, a strange darkness moved. It was not like normal night darkness. Normal darkness stays still. This darkness slid forward like smoke. It did not have eyes or teeth. It did not have hands. But it made the air cold, and it made people's skin prickle with fear. A guard waved his torch. The darkness pulled back, then rolled forward again, like water testing a stone. People gathered behind the guards, whispering. Some held their children close. So she noticed women holding younger siblings? No, she kept her focus on adults. Wives held their husbands' arms, brothers stood shoulder to shoulder, elders leaned on staffs. Elder Bocco arrived, his face stern. Do not run, he told the crowd. Stay together. The guards moved forward with torches, and for a moment the shadows pulled away. But they did not leave. They swirled at a distance, like they were waiting. A hunter shouted, we can chase them. We are not weak. He stepped forward. And the shadows did something strange. They did not attack him. They did not touch him. Instead, they breathed out a cold wind. The hunter's torch went out at once, as if someone had pinched the fire with wet fingers. The hunter stumbled back, shocked. More torches dimmed. The guards suddenly looked less confident. Fear rose like dust. Nalia's hair lifted behind her. It did not tangle. It did not panic. It moved like a living thing stretching awake. The whisper came, urgent. Do not fight them with anger. Do not chase them with pride. Bind them with calm. Feed the land with light. Nalia's hands shook. Her heart pounded. Why me? She whispered. Her hair brushed her cheek, warm as sunlight. Because you carry the old promise. Nalia remembered stories her mother once told her. Stories of ancestors who made agreements with the land. In old times, the people of Kembe respected the river and the trees. They took only what they needed. They thanked the earth after harvest. They cleaned the riverbank. They did not laugh at quiet gifts. But over the years, people began to boast. They measured worth only by loud strength. They forgot the small ways that keep life together. Nalia looked at the swirling shadows again. She felt something in her chest, not fear alone, but understanding. The shadows were like the village's forgotten respect made into darkness. They came when pride grew too big. They came when kindness became small. Nalia took one step forward. Someone noticed her and snapped, Go back, Nalia. This is not for you. Another voice said, She will only slow us down with that hair. Nalia paused. Her old self wanted to obey and disappear. But her awakened self lifted her head. I will not disappear, she said, surprising even herself with the steadiness of her voice. The crowd went quiet for a moment. Elder Bocco turned and looked at her. His eyes softened. Nalia, he said gently, what are you doing? Nalia swallowed. I think my hair can help. A few people laughed. But the laughter died quickly because the shadows rolled closer again, and fear returned. The guards raised their torches, but the flames were weak now, trembling like tired hearts. Nalia closed her eyes. She did not try to force magic. She simply listened. She listened to the wind. She listened to the dry grass. She listened to her own breath. And she listened to her hair. It began to glow. Not bright like fire, but soft like dawn light. A gentle gold spread from the roots to the ends, turning the long strands into shining ropes of warmth. The crowd gasped. Nalia opened her eyes. Her hair floated slightly above the ground, moving in slow circles around her, as if it was gathering courage too. Nalia raised her hands. Please, she said to the villagers, do not shout. Do not run. Stand close together. A man snapped, Why should we listen to you? Elder Bocco answered before Nalia could. Because we have tried loud strength, and it has not worked. Let us try a different way. People hesitated, but then they moved closer. Not because they suddenly respected Nalia, but because fear makes people willing to try anything. Nalia took a deep breath and spoke quietly, not to the people, but to the land. Ancestors of Kembi, she said, if I carry your promise, teach me how to use it well. Her hair lifted higher, and the glow grew warmer. Then the hair began to braid itself. Strands crossed over one another quickly, faster than any human fingers could braid. The braids formed wide loops, like strong rings. They spread outward from Nalia in a circle. The circle grew until it surrounded the villagers. It did not feel like a cage. It felt like a fence made of light and calm. The shadows rolled forward, testing the edge of the glowing circle. When they touched the light, they did not burn or scream. They simply paused, as if confused, then drifted back. The air grew less cold. People murmured in surprise. Nalia's face shone with sweat, not from heat but from effort. Her arms trembled. Yet her voice stayed gentle. Bring water, she said, and surprised herself again by giving clear instructions. Even a small pot. Bring what you have. A woman ran and returned with a calabash that was only half full. Another came with a clay pot with a little water at the bottom. Nalia knelt and placed her glowing hair near the water. The strands dipped into the water like fingers. The water shimmered. It did not become more by trick. Instead, it became brighter, cleaner, as if it remembered what it was meant to be, life. Nalia stood and lifted her hand. Her hair rose, dripping shining drops. She walked to the edge of the village circle and gently swung the ends of her hair toward the dry ground. The drops fell. Where they touched, the dust darkened. Then, small green shoots pushed up. People gasped again, louder this time. But Nalia did not smile. She still felt fear, because she could sense the shadows were not finished. They circled like confused animals looking for a gap. Nalia looked toward the river path. The river needs help, she whispered. Elder Boko stepped closer. Tell us what to do, he said. Nalia's heart softened at his words. Not because she wanted to be praised, but because she heard respect in his voice. We must go together, Nalia said. Not only warriors. Everyone. We must carry calm. We must carry honesty. We must carry respect. Some people frowned at those words, but the glow around them made them feel safe enough to listen. So the village moved as one group toward the river path, surrounded by Nalia's circle of braided light. Her hair stretched far, still connected to her head, still glowing, still moving like a living river of gold. At the river bend, the village saw the truth. The river was thin indeed. Its water moved slowly, like a tired person dragging their feet. The riverbank looked cracked. The reeds bent as if they were thirsty. And above the river, the shadows swirled, thicker than before. They floated low over the water, drinking its strength without touching it, as if they were stealing the river's courage. Some villagers stepped back in fear. A strong man muttered, "We should have cut down the old trees near the river years ago. Maybe the spirits are angry." Another said, "We should have listened when the elders told us to stop dumping waste near the water." People began to remember their wrong choices, and shame spread like smoke. Nalia felt her eyes sting. She had wanted the village to see beyond her hair. Now they were seeing beyond their pride too, and it hurt them. Nalia stepped forward to the riverbank. Her hair lifted and stretched toward the shadows. This time, the shadows pushed back with cold wind. The air shivered. Some people hugged themselves. Nalia closed her eyes again. She did not fight the cold with anger. She breathed. In and out. She remembered how she had been called useless. She remembered how she had swallowed pain and stayed quiet. And she remembered something else. She had still been kind. She had still helped in small ways. She had still respected elders, even when others mocked her. She spoke softly, not shouting at the shadows. "You are not my enemy," she said, surprising the villagers with those words. "You are a warning." The shadows paused, swirling slowly. Nalia continued, "You came because we forgot. We forgot the river. We forgot the trees. We forgot each other. We forgot to look at quiet gifts." Her hair began to braid again, but this time it braided into many thin strands, like long cords. The cords floated toward the shadows and wove a net, not to trap in anger, but to hold in calm. The net wrapped gently around the darkest parts of the shadow cloud. The shadows trembled, like a person waking from a bad dream. Then Nalia did something that made the whole village fall silent. She bowed. Yes, she bowed to the shadows. Not because she feared them. Not because she honored darkness. But because she respected the lesson they carried. I hear you, she said. Now please, release the river. The people will change. Elder Boko stepped forward beside her. He bowed too. Other elders bowed. Then the villagers one by one bowed, some awkwardly, some with tears in their eyes. A farmer said, voice shaking, "We are sorry, river." A woman whispered, "We are sorry, land." A man who had mocked Nalia earlier swallowed hard. "We are sorry, Nalia." When those words were spoken, Nalia's hair flared brighter, like sunrise spreading fast. The net of braided light tightened gently, not squeezing but guiding. The shadows began to thin. They did not explode. They did not scream. They did not die in a violent way. They changed. The dark cloud lifted slowly and turned into mist. Then the mist rose into the air and drifted away across the savannah, like a lesson returning to the sky. At once, the river made a new sound. A stronger sound. A living sound. Water surged forward, not like a flood, but like a healthy river remembering how to run. People cried out in joy. Some laughed. Some fell to their knees and touched the water as if touching a miracle. Nalia stood quietly, breathing hard. Her hair's glow softened, turning from bright gold to warm brown again, but it still looked healthier and stronger than before. The next morning, the sun rose over Kembe, and the village looked different. Not because the huts changed shape. Not because new buildings appeared. But because faces changed. People walked slower, noticing the grass and the wind. They greeted elders with more respect. They spoke with softer voices near the river. They swept the paths and carried away waste. They promised not to take more water than needed. Elder Boko called a gathering under the baobab tree. This time, when Nalia arrived, nobody laughed. They made space for her. Elder Boko stood up and said, "People of Kembe, we were blind in our hearts. We measured worth only by loud strength. We forgot the quiet gifts." He turned to Nalia. "Nalia, we called you useless. We shamed you. Yet you did not return shame to us." Nalia felt tears rise again, but these tears were not the same as the ones from the morning before. These tears were warm, like rain after long dryness. A man who had mocked her stepped forward. His voice was low. "Nalia, forgive us." Nalia looked at his face. She saw fear, shame, and hope all together. She remembered how it felt to be laughed at. She also remembered how her hair had taught her calm. "I forgive you," she said. "But do not forget the lesson." Elder Boko nodded. "We will not." Then Nalia walked toward the village shrine. The shrine was a small place made of stones and carved wood, where the village offered thanks to the ancestors and asked for wisdom. Nalia sat beside it and held one braid of her hair. The braid shimmered faintly, like it held a small piece of dawn inside it. She took a sharp shell, not a weapon, just a tool used for cutting grass and rope, and carefully cut the braid. The villagers held their breath. Nalia placed the braid at the shrine with both hands, as if laying down a gift. "This braid," she said softly, "is a reminder. Power can be hidden in what people laugh at. Wisdom can live in quiet places. And the land listens to how we live." Elder Boko said, "From today, we will teach this story to every adult who forgets respect." People nodded, and some smiled sadly, because they knew the story was about their own mistake. Nalia did not ask to become queen. She did not demand gifts. She did not enjoy people kneeling. She only asked for one thing. "Let us care for the river together," she said. "Let us listen to elders. Let us stop judging people too quickly." And the village agreed. That evening, Nalia walked outside the village as the sun lowered. The sky turned orange and soft. Birds flew home. The grass moved like a quiet sea. Nalia looked back once and saw Kembi behind her. Still the same village, but with gentler eyes. Her hair flowed behind her, long and heavy, but no longer a burden in her mind. It was a gift. And in the quiet of the savannah, Nalia felt the land whisper again, not in warning now but in peace. You listened. You chose courage. You healed what pride broke. Nalia smiled through her tears. Then she walked forward into the sunset, not defined by the village's old words, but by her own steady heart and the magic she had finally believed in. And so, the people of Kembi learned something that stayed with them longer than any drought or fear. Sometimes, the thing you call useless is the very thing that can save you, if you learn to look with respect. If you have been enjoying African folktale stories on this channel, kindly like, comment and subscribe to this channel. See you on the next story. Bye.